This channel is made possible through the support of generous listeners just like you. If you would like to be a part of helping us bring our message of hope, peace, love, and spiritual truth to the world, please consider heading to experienceofthesoul.com/support, where you can join us as an ongoing patron or simply make a one-time gift. Blessings on the journey, dear friend.
Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 113, The Golden Key. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to The Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson, and I'm here back in 818 Studios with my producer.
Hello, everybody. This is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 113 of The Authentic Spiritual Journey here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. It is magnificent to have you back in the studio once again, and we've got you all boxed in a little vocal booth. And so can we talk about that? Should we talk about the video and
Sure,
YouTube channel and all of that? We're still putting out the show on our YouTube channel or on Cynthia Alice's YouTube channel, but we're really focusing on bringing you as good of a high quality audio show as we can. And I think there were just some things that shooting the video, because so many of our listeners listen to it, on headphones and everything. And so if you've ever watched, here's one way to test this, is listen to a newscast, but listen to it on headphones and don't look at the picture. And so you can kind of hear just kind of the audio quality. So I know that we wanted to bring as good of a quality product and show as possible. So we're kind of holding off on shooting live video during the show. We'll still put it out on the YouTube. So you listeners that listen to the show on YouTube, we're going to still keep doing that. But we're really, really focusing on amazing sound quality.
Right. And so many people said that I checked with, because I talked to several people who told me over the last couple of years that they always listen at their desk. Well, they're not standing there. They're not sitting at their desk staring at my face in YouTube. They're sometimes they're working and listening or cooking dinner. So even though they listen through YouTube, they're not actually watching necessarily on YouTube. So we do want your feedback, but I know that the sound quality is going to be even better, and that's always our goal, to make this a great experience for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Our goal was we wanted it to sound as good as anything you would hear on NPR, and I think we're there. I think we got it. And there's a lot of great energy around the show, friends. I just spoke with somebody today in Italy, and so this is really wonderful. All the listeners we have from around the world, and they're, all different backgrounds, all different religions, all different, belief systems. But because we're providing spiritual principles to uplift their lives, it doesn't matter where they go to church or if they go to church at all. The shows are really supporting their journey. And we're even branching out with new shows, as I know Monique McDonald's show, The Magnetic Voice, just aired a couple weeks ago. So that was great, too. So we're really proud and happy to be bringing you these new shows. Absolutely. With, we brought Mindy on several months ago, and now Monique, and we have shows every Saturday. And so we're bringing you shows 6 days a week. And so it's got to be only a matter of time before we fill that Sunday slot.
Right. Well, and we just have a new corporate sponsor coming on as well. So we're going to bring them on next month, so you'll hear more about them. So, yes. So thank you for joining us, friends, and thank you for all the ways you support the show, through sharing, through listening, through your donations, because as you can see, we're always putting money, effort, and energy into the best possible show we can bring you, and today is no exception.
Absolutely.
Dave, what number are we on? Is it 113 today?
113, yes.
All right, so show 113. I don't think you gave the title yet.
I did not. I always wait for you. I always want to be invited to say the title of this week's episode is The Golden Key. The Golden Key.
The Golden Key, yes, by Emmet Fox. And anybody who's been around the 12 steps for any length of time has probably heard of Emmet Fox, because so much of his material, so many of his writings were taught by people who also attend Alcoholics Anonymous. There's this incredible connection he had with the wife of one of the founders of Bill W. And so since the inception of Alcoholics Anonymous, unity and unity teachings, even science of mind teachings, those two have been linked. And one of the reasons I believe that is, it's about putting God first in your life and releasing, the old way of doing and being. And of course, recovery is really about what? Well, it's about, like in the story of the prodigal son, it's you coming to yourself and realizing, oh my goodness, there is more for me, right? And so once you decide, well, I don't want to live the life of an addict, I really want to be on purpose, I want to live from God, I want to live from love, and then you have the unity teachings. So what's amazing about the program, and many times over the last couple of years, we've brought up Alcoholics Anonymous and recovery. Well, what we know is that that program saves your life. But then what about after that? It does save your life, but then you have to work on the emotional pieces. You have to work on the spiritual piece of righting past wrongs. And yes, there is a hugely spiritual aspect to working the 12 steps. But what I found from people over the years is they say, I had to do deeper spiritual work. Like, the program saved my life, but then I had to make a new life that I wanted to have. And that's where my teaching and what we love to call the New Thought teachings, come in. Mm. So today's title, again, The Golden Key, is an older teaching that is so based in principle, and I've used it many, many times. What I also love about it, it's not a long treatise. It's not 25 chapters in a 3-inch book. It's 6 short pages, believe it or not. The Golden Key is 6 short pages. And it is one of the most effective tools for getting yourself out of any difficulty. The Golden Key is the key for getting yourself out of any difficulty. It is basically a key to harmony, happiness, and even success. And I know that this sounds like a really bold statement that it can get you out of any difficulty, but I even have a story of a good friend to share with you today about how she used this very thing. So, the Golden Key. The Golden Key is a way to set yourself free. It's a way to get yourself out of difficulty. It's also a great way to help support you in relationship issues, lawsuit issues, real estate issues. It's all the same practice to handle all different manner of issues. So I hope this is making sense as I'm saying this, that the Golden Key is tried and true and will get you out of any difficulty. And it's especially good relationally. It's especially good with issues that you've really tried on a real human level to solve and they won't solve. So I don't want you to take my word for it. And this is, if you followed my teachings long, you know that I often say, please don't take my word for it. Try it yourself. Try it yourself. And I know this one without a shadow of a doubt works. Without a shadow of a doubt, this works. And so you're sitting there saying, well, what is it? Well, I'm leading up to it. I'm going to keep you on the edge of your seat for a minute, Dave. All right. So we know God is everywhere present. We know God is all powerful, right? All the omnis, as we used to say growing up in the church, all the omnis, omnipresent, omniscient, right? And we are also told through the scriptures and through spiritual teaching that humanity is made in God's image and likeness. We're even told that we have dominion over all things. So I believe this teaching is meant to be taken absolutely literally. If God is omnipotent, then I am to be omnipotent. If God is omniscient, then I am to be omniscient. Now, this doesn't preclude the need for God. As a matter of fact, it absolutely requires daily, moment-by-moment connection. Because I know there's somebody thinking, well, I don't know how to be omnipotent. That's exactly my point. You don't yet. I don't yet. But that is our purpose, right? So I believe if God is omnipotent and we're made in God's image and likeness, if God is omniscient and we're made in God's image and likeness, if God is unconditional love and I'm made in God's image and likeness, I am to be all of those things. So what we see often through the church and through culture in general, we basically get the message that the only way we can be spiritual at a very high level is by the blessing of a priest or a minister, or going to a saint, or climbing up the mountain to somebody who's supposedly a higher consciousness. It's almost like it's a special prerogative for a chosen few. But when I look at Scripture and when I experience God on such a real human level, what I know is it's meant for everyone, right? So the golden key is something we all already possess. This is what I want you to know. But we don't always call on that energy and call on that power, so we don't even know the key is even there, right? So you don't even have to be a highly practiced practitioner to do it. You don't even need to follow a religious dogma to practice the golden key. You are simply, all you need is simply the willingness to be the channel of all that God has to offer. And you will become more powerful, more knowing, more loving as you get your personality, your ego self out of the way. What is so important in the process that I'm going to be giving you is that you have to have an open mind, because if you already have a preconceived idea, it will not work. And it's important for you to have, or to call on, rather, the abundance of faith that you are. I want to remind you that you don't have to have any particular view on God or even religion. And what is fundamental to the golden key is simplicity itself. So here is the golden key in one sentence. Stop thinking about whatever your difficulty is, whatever it is, and think about God instead. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. And this is it. This is the complete rule. This is it.
This is the key.
This is the key. Stop thinking about whatever's bugging you, whatever the difficulty. I don't care if it's money, if it's a lawsuit, if it's another human being, if it's yourself, if it's the home you live in, if it's the house you're trying to sell, if it is whatever, if it's a money issue, whatever it is, stop thinking about it and think about God instead. And that's it. That's the whole rule. And I'm telling you, I can already imagine people, because when I first heard about this, I tend to be cynical about these things. Okay, I have to admit, I can be a little cynical. And I wanted to say, I mean, anything? like I don't get to think about it at all, because I love to think about things, and I love to try to figure things out, and I think about different options, and see, that's part of the problem. Is when we try to think it to death. You've heard of this in business meetings, Dave, probably analysis paralysis.
Oh, absolutely.
And have you seen it happen?
Oh, I've been party to it happening on both sides of causing the problem and being paralyzed.
Right. And I've been in those meetings too, and I'm with you. I've been the one causing the problem, and I've observed it. And what I love about being a part of spiritual community and working with so many spiritual people now in my business, if there's ever a difficulty, we can just say, can we just pause and breathe and see if a new idea is going to come forward, because what we're doing isn't working, And so that's kind of the idea of this. We don't think about the difficulty. We don't think about the problem, because with the way the mind works, and I've talked about this a couple times recently, but it keeps coming up in my consciousness, is the negativity bias. Remember, your brain is wired to find problems, right? That's just how the brain works. So when you're trying to solve a problem, all you're going to see is more problems. And when you think about God, it completely changes the energetic, vibrational reality of the situation. So it's so simple. It's so simple. And everybody that I know that has tried it has said to me, it always works. It always works. Now, what's so interesting about this simplicity is that we all have tendencies. One of the tendencies, like I say, is to start thinking about it and trying to solve it at the level of the problem. We say, okay, God, this is what's going on. And then we go right back to it. We don't really surrender it. And the other thing is we try to bring other people in on it to think about what they think about it. And now we've just doubled the problem instead of, releasing the problem. And so when we can more fully realize that really God is in us, God is asking us, requiring of us to move into omniscience, omnipotent, unconditional love. That if we can get our minds, that's thinking everything to death, and our personality self, which is just the wounded aspect of you, out of the way, then divine action takes place automatically. It's like you don't even have to pray for it to happen. Divine action is already happening, but we have to move our thoughts, our beliefs, this old way of doing things out of the way. So don't think about it more, or don't try to spiritualize your thinking. That's the other thing a lot of people do. They try to start spiritualizing it. Well, maybe if I just thought about what would help the other person. No. We don't think about the problem at all. If we were in church, I'd say with me, at all.
At all.
At all, baby. Let it go. Don't think about it at all. And remember, everyone I know who's practiced it has said it always works. The author says it always works, Emmet Fox. And I can tell you, in my experience, when I do it, it always works. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the problems we can get into with it, because it's just human nature. We all tend to do these things. And like one of the things I said, obviously, is we try to think it to death or think about it from a spiritual level. The other thing we try to do is we try to form a picture of God. And the first thing I think of is that, Hollywood has given us wonderful images of God that are not accurate. One is that God is a big old white guy sitting on a big throne, long gray beard, and I like to add the big gold G on, right, for God. The other thing, that I instantly, the other image I get is this image of Jesus sitting very like quietly looking up at the heavens in that kind of white, that kind of cream robe, and he's got the blue-eyed Jesus,
Right, yeah.
And
fair
so,
skin.
yeah, the fair-skinned, blue-eyed Jesus. And so rather than forming an outward picture of God, because again, the models we have are very limited and limiting in terms of how vast God is. But I would rather have you rehearse everything you know about God, which is what? Wisdom, truth, inconceivable love. God is present everywhere. God has infinite power. God knows everything. God knows how to guide us, direct us right. So, it even like God is faith. God is truth. God is forgiveness itself. God is power. God is. God is everywhere present. God is. God is all love, all power, all wisdom, all knowledge, all goodness. Any goodness I see is God. Do you feel the energy shift? I'm not thinking about God now. I'm not thinking about what God looks like. Rather, I'm bringing into my consciousness everything I know about God. And already my feeling nature has shifted. I don't know, it's probably 15 seconds worth of shifting. I mean, we're 15 seconds worth of saying those few things, and yet I noticed my body posture changed. Even my voice lifted a little bit. I had clarity, and it was for a few seconds. So what you want to do is repeat these things, go over them, and don't limit yourself by saying you only know a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I find, Dave, so many people I work with, will say, well, I don't really know much about God. And then they'll go on to tell me this incredible spiritual experience they have had. And I go, well, actually, can we change what you first said? Because it sounds like you know more about God than a lot of folks, because what you just described was a God experience. Like we have ideas about what we know and understand, and we think, well, if I don't have reverend or some initials after my name, if I don't have an MDiv or I don't have a doctorate, that I don't know anything. But what I love about true spirituality, and I would even say true religion, which of course initially meant to bind together, is that it's very simple in its origin. And all we want to do is to focus on God and remember God is wisdom, God is truth, God is love, God is infinite power, God knows everything, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take this idea right into the break, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, Natural Awakenings Magazine of Central Florida, Greater Orlando. Each month, Natural Awakenings magazines across the country take a practical look at the latest natural approaches to nutrition, fitness, creative expression, personal growth, and sustainable living. Natural Awakenings magazine is a free publication and is available in selected stores, health and education centers, healing centers, public libraries, and wherever free publications are located. You could learn more, including advertising opportunities for your business, by calling 407-628-0705. We'd also like to extend our special thanks to Zen Living Realty. Zen Living Realty's mission is to mindfully serve, connect, and positively impact their customers, partners, and community through their Zen approach to real estate. Their vision is to be the most trusted real estate brokerage in the Central Florida area. You can reach Zen Living Realty at zenlivingrealty.com or call 407-800-2717. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
I'm glad you're with us today, and I hope you're tracking with this. And the reason I keep repeating some of the things I've said about what God is that The truth is we all know this stuff at the level of the soul. We really know what God is. And you know what? In fact, children know so beautifully and so accurately. This is a wonderful thing to do with your kids as well. It's another thing I love about spiritual truth. Anything I'm telling the adults, I want to say, tell your kids, but then again, they already know it and can probably tell you. Sometimes as we age, we unlearn all the profound spiritual truths we've been given. So, yeah, God is wisdom, God is truth, God is love. And notice that as I'm saying these things, I'm saying God is, not God has. And I want to pause to explain that because if we say God has power, well, that can conjure up an image of power as we think about it in this world, in this third dimension, which in our culture means guns. In our culture means bullying. So God doesn't have power. God is power. So any power in the world, in the universe, in the earth, like when I say God is power, for some reason I think of a rainstorm. I think of a river. I think of the vastness of the ocean, right? So when we say God is power, it reminds us is that any power comes from God. Any power is God, right? So I want you to really, as you think about God, to repeat these things over and over, and as you do, you'll find eventually, as you repeat them, the trouble kind of starts to slip away. And you know what I mean when I say trouble? Whatever's dogging you, right? Whatever's in your mind that won't let you go, that's just driving you crazy, and you want to call everybody and talk about it, and blah 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 blah. All those ways we get into stuff, and some things are so seductive, to our mind. It's like, oh, I'm going to go over there and tell him what to do, or I'm going to go over there and tell her what to do. But in fact, the best thing you can do is stop thinking about the problem or the trouble or the issue, whatever it is. Think about God instead. Now, as you start to do this, and you'll do this a few times, okay, God is wisdom, God is truth, God is love, God is faith, God is forgiveness itself, God is, your mind might want to sneak in there for a minute and give you a thought of the trouble again. Well, I'll tell you, that's how you know if you're focused on God or not. If the problem comes back to mind, like you just hit it with that God is, God is, God is, God is, right? Because what's going to be real human for you to do, and remember I said the first thing we're going to do is we're going to think it to death, right? And I can't even remember the second thing right now, but the third thing we tend to do is we're going to glance over our shoulder to see if it's progressing like we want. We go, well, God, I said an affirmation for 5 minutes. Why is everything not changed instantly? So if you find yourself going back to the old thoughts, think about God instead. Think about God instead. Think about God instead. Yeah. So if the issue comes back in your mind, think about God. And this is the whole thing. This is the whole thing. So what's amazing as you start to work it is that the lightness that starts to appear in your thought world. I was sitting with a friend the other day, and she said to me, I don't know if I have ever seen you this relaxed and this happy. She said, like, you've always been kind of a happy person, but I can just feel your happiness. And I said, I am really happy. And I said, well, I think I want to say thank you for that feedback. And, we kind of laughed. I said, I wasn't grumping around, was I? And she said, no. She said, you just have this, like just the light in your eyes, And I thought, I have more to do now than I've ever had to do. And that's saying something. I've got several things moving that have been stuck for a while. I've got a couple houses on the market that are selling and all this stuff. So I've got a lot of great forward motion in a lot of areas of my life. And what's funny, even though I'm busier than I've ever been, I have more times of rest. And I have scheduled them in. And I'm saying all this because rather than in every moment trying to figure something out, I'm letting God do it. What an idea. It's my Achilles heel, to want to figure it out and lead the charge and, accomplish things and check it off my list. And what's so interesting about this teaching about the golden key is that it sounds like do nothing, but it's not that. As you think about God instead of the issue, when there is something to do, you'll know exactly what's yours to do because your mind has been focused on the right place. Does that make sense, Dave?
Yeah, the challenge that I see, and it's so simple, but it's deceptively simple.
Right.
And it's interesting that Emmet Fox is tied to Alcoholics Anonymous because I think, that's an entire support system. I mean,
Yeah.
if it was as easy to get an alcoholic to quit drinking to just say, well, you should stop drinking. Have you tried just not drinking? Right? Then there AA wouldn't even need to exist. So my question for you is how do you, if you're really stuck in it, and you're really, really mired in something, it's really easy to say, well, just stop thinking about that thing and start thinking about God. Any ideas or suggestions on how to get somebody out, if they're stuck in the mud and they're spinning their tires?
Yeah, well, the number one thing is to start saying it out loud. We all think, again, we think things to death, and sometimes you need to say things out loud, and you might need to call a friend, a loved one, a counselor, or a minister, to help you through a difficult situation. And any of the principles I teach don't preclude that.
Sure.
Anybody who knows me knows I am constantly working on myself, and I think it's good and necessary to do so. But there are times when, as good as all that support is, our soul work is about our relationship with God. And so, we have to be able to pull ourselves back from the brink by focusing on God instead of on the problem. So I think the first thing I would do, and I have done many times, is speak all this out loud. And sometimes I yell it. If I'm really having a difficulty with something, I say, God is love, God is love, God is love. And then my energy shifts, and by the end I'm going, God is love. But sometimes it's so hard to shift those old thoughts. Yeah, it is pretty hard to do that. But it's doable, and it's toughest at the beginning because we're not used to it.
Right.
And what I've noticed in people too a lot is if they don't know exactly how to do it, they go, I don't know. And then they just kind of, just plug back into their phone and forget anything about it and go play Candy Crush or something. And I'll just play some Candy Crush. That'll be better.
Just to numb the mind a little bit.
Just to numb the mind a little bit. And there's certainly nothing wrong with taking a break, but I'm going to do another show on why I swore off Candy Crush. But anyway, I think, yeah, saying it aloud is great. And if you have a trusted friend, confidant, as I said, it might be a therapist, counselor, or minister if you need more help. Because what we know over time is that if we keep having the same issues come up, there will be deeper work to be done. And then we can use the golden key with a therapeutic model. We can use the golden key with a new psychological process that is helping our healing. So I think everything works together.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I think as you focus on God, again, you're guided and directed in the right steps. It doesn't mean that everything magically disappears. What it means is that you know what's yours to do. And, this is my phrase, you know what's yours to do, when and how to do it, because your guidance is from God, not from the personality, the wounded self, or the mind. Right. So, a couple things I want to leave with you too, just on this topic is I want to make sure that, well, here's what I've heard people say. I'm going to golden key, like I would say, if Dave were really getting on my nerves, which I will say in the years I've known him has never happened. So this is why I'm comfortable saying this. I'm going to golden key Dave, right? I'm going to golden key Dave, and I'm gonna try to influence Dave's conduct by golden keying him. I'm going to tell you it doesn't work that way. However, if I'm having a difficulty with Dave, and I just golden key the thoughts I keep having about Dave, then guess what? I do feel better. And then Dave is free to do what he wants and needs, and then rather than me being caught in an old reaction, then I'm able to pull myself up and out, right? And of course, if I'm thinking about a difficulty with Dave, and then all of a sudden instead I'm thinking about God, and I'm imaging that and sending thoughts of God to Dave, well, that's going to do nothing but help Dave. So that is going to be better. But I can't try to control Dave's behavior after I quote unquote golden key him.
I like how we've verbified that.
Right. Hey man, I golden keyed him,
Well, this all feels, it sounds like, Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I like the way the Message says this, because we're used to like seek ye first, King James.
Right.
But the way the Message, and Message Bible is one of my favorite.
But it's cool. Go ahead.
But the way it's put is steep your life in God reality, God initiative, God provisions. Don't worry about missing out. You'll find all your everyday human concerns will be met.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Dave, it's funny you brought that up because I wanted to end with this aspect, which is the golden key is not about material things, and we have to have our mind completely away from the material to do this, and totally focus on God. And it's so fascinating that the more I teach prosperity and the more that I grow my relationship with God, it's still growing every day, the less I think about the material, and yet the more material I have, right? So I want to encourage you, friends, in this and really encourage you to see how powerful you are. Because remember, there is no power but God, right? And so if you begin to take this message and really begin to believe it, your life will change, and for the better. Your life will change for the better. And do encourage you to don't struggle, but be consistent and insistent, right? Don't struggle, but don't let your attention wander either. So I want to just tell you a brief story of this friend of mine. This was a friend I knew. I met at Seattle Unity, and that's where I found Unity, over 20 years ago now. And she even wrote a song about it. But she was actually in Africa, and she was in the middle of nowhere. And the car she and a friend were in broke down, and so her friend, who was a man, was going to try to go get help, and he left her with the car. Well, while she was there, I mean, literally in the middle of a kind of remote area, these guys came in and started to rob her and take things out of the car. They were literally taking the car apart and threatening to take her. And she yelled everything she knew about God and said the words over and over, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, Jesus Christ, God, 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 everything she knew about God. And after about like a few seconds, the guys looked, she said it looked like they had seen a ghost and left. And she was totally saved. And then she came back and wrote a song about it. And the words were, everything I need is always given to me. Everything I need to let me know that I'm free. There's nothing standing in my way. Beautiful. And she, to this day, would say, oh my goodness, yes, God saved my life that day. And she said, I don't even know where it came from. All I knew, was to call on God. So don't struggle, but be consistent, be insistent. right? If your attention wanders, bring it back to God. Don't outline the situation and try to say what's going to happen, because this will only delay your goodness. So leave the question of how to God, get out of your own way, and focus on God. This is what we want to do. So I'm going to leave you today with a few statements that are going to really help you in this work. And they'll be here for you if you want to play them again. There is no power but God. God's presence is within me. I am the child of God, filled and surrounded by the perfect peace of God. God is love. God is truth. God is faith. God is forgiveness. God is peace. God is guiding me now. God is with me. So we bless you on the journey, dear friend. And as always, we are so happy and grateful that you've joined us on this journey of the authentic the authentic spiritual journey of our evolving souls that we are working together. So we bless you on the journey, dear friend, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us today. Many blessings.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by Natural Awakenings Magazine and Zen Living Realty. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is also made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Aggie Payton, Anna Evans, Arlene Meyer, Diana Cox, Leslie Williams, Nora Miles, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, Susanna Garcia, and Taryn Tucker. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2020, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.